if you could do whatever you wanted as a software developer, what that would be to sit in your room with your headphones on for days and days, just hacking away without, talking to anyone, without eating properly, without getting any fresh air or anything like that. And that is, the acme of what it means to really be a software developer. And any extent to which you're working on a team or working with other people or having to talk to people somehow detracts from that pure essence of what it is to be a software developer. And I think, the other thing that, as you know me, and I've talked about this a lot, like that's very much tied to like a lot of things that I also care about in the industry, like the gender imbalance and the imbalance along race lines and other things. That identity is, very much a kind of a duty thing to have as an idea of what it means. And so that's why I think it's kind of an identity thing for people. And I think, something someone said on Twitter ages ago that really struck me was that a lot of the XP principles were basically fighting against that kind of identity and saying, well, actually, the best way to develop software is to work as a team and talk to each other a lot more. And software version control is fundamentally a communication tool. It's how you tell other people what you're doing. And so what you're doing with continuous integration is like communicating a lot more with other people and talking to them. And this idea that, I'm not done. I can't even evaluate the extent to which I'm done until I'm integrated. And to do that, I need to know what other people are doing and that what I'm doing works with other people. And to do that a lot more often, like a lot of these XP principles are actually about building teams that are not based on that idea that that software development is primarily about sitting with your headphones on, knocking out code.
Yeah. Hollywood and the TV industry's got a lot to answer for. Yeah, absolutely. No, I do think you're right. The other thing that it seems to me that's deeply challenging to people, and challenges them to the degree to which they get defensive and combative and those sorts of things as well, I think, is the idea of working in small steps and working more incrementally. A lot of people seem to think, often the same people that you're talking about, but they seem to think that the job is to sit there and be really brilliant and to have genius just jump from their heads in one big step. And I don't think it works like that at all. I make mistakes all of the time. I type the wrong things. I can't remember bits of the libraries that I'm using or whatever. And so I want the tiny little bit of feedback, the tiny little juice of feedback, that after every tiny little step I know that things are working. I've said this a few times recently in different contexts, but if I think of I've been very fortunate to work with some people that I think are genuinely great software developers, and it's really hard to kind of put your finger on what it is that's great about them. But the one characteristic that I can, actually two characteristics that I can think of that they all share, is one of them that you were just talking about. They talk to people. They talk to people a lot. And the other one is that they work in tiny steps, and after each tiny step they say, is it still working? Not necessarily in a TDD context, so that's my preference, but just in general, they always work like that, even before they did TDD or whatever else. So I agree with you. I think these are misleading ideas.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I think that also comes from a place of insecurity, that you feel you've got to prove yourself, and by kind of going off and creating this amazing thing and delivering it as if it was, as you say, kind of from the mind of Zeus, somehow shows you to be like this brilliant person. And I think, one of the things that, as I've grown in my career and I'm in this place that I feel very lucky to be in, where, I'm kind of, looked up to by a certain group of people, and that, not that I haven't worked for that, but, it is that I can now just be much more open about the fact that, as you say, like I make mistakes all the time. I Google stuff all the time. And, when I'm teaching in UC Berkeley, I make a point of saying, I can't remember what this is. Even though I'm teaching a class in, Java, I'll still Google stuff during class that I can't remember, because, it's actually your job as a software engineer is not to be a Wikipedia. It's to solve problems. And when you solve problems, the whole point of solving problems is that they haven't been solved before, because otherwise, why are you getting paid for it? So of course you're not going to know the answer straight away, because if you knew the answer straight away, it wouldn't be a problem worth solving.
Yeah, 100%. And I am constitutionally lured to the hard problems. I love it when people say, "Oh, we've got a hard problem. We don't know what to do." I'm going, "Oh, cool. let me at it," because that's the job. You want to try and be challenged a little bit, and you want to be trying out, exercising the muscles to explore the problem. But that's deeply about having the tools of the trade, the techniques that allow you the opportunities to learn and know how to start to walk into a problem when you've no clue what the answer is.
Right. And the answer is not going to be, I'm going to go away and just solve it by myself over the course of days or weeks or months. Like, we're not doing theoretical physics where that might be. And even then, people talk about Einstein going away and solving general relativity. Well, that's true. That was mainly him. But, he was talking to people all the time and going to conferences and reading papers, and there was all this stuff going on. He wasn't operating in a vacuum. And so I think, it's the same. And that thing that you talk about being iterative, that's key to problem solving. You're not going to come up with a complete solution as a hypothesis. Like, what I always do all the time is like, okay, what's step one? And how can I go and test that and validate that and come back with that thing? And what's step two? And that's actually the hard bit, is taking that big thing, splitting it up into, what's step one? How can I test that? And then in the process of learning that'll change probably, at least some part of the picture of what the problem is that you have to solve it. And it might completely shift it in some cases. But that's essential. It's like, I was watching The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with my daughter last night, and it's like you go to talk to Deep Thought, and Deep Thought says, well, the answer's 42. And it's because you fundamentally failed at the problem of asking questions.
Yes. Asking the good questions is definitely part of what it takes to be good at this job, I think. But I mean, in the trivial way, but also in the deep way of just coming up with those little questions that we want to ask of our software and the process and each other and all of those things to drive the learning. This clip was taken from my podcast, The Engineering Room with Dave Farley, a monthly podcast with some of the brightest minds in software engineering. You can find full episodes on all your favourite podcast platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon Music. Your support helps us to bring you these regular episodes, so please leave your positive review on your preferred podcast platform to help us to continue to grow and bring you great guests and their insights. Thank you very much for listening.